I am Senator Bernie Sanders. Ask me anything. Let me thank all of you for joining us today and asking very great questions. My plea is please get out and vote and bring your friends, your family members and co-workers to the polls. We are now living under the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. We have got to end one-party rule in Washington and elect progressive governors and state officials. Let's revitalize democracy. Let's have a very large voter turnout on Tuesday. Let's stand up and fight back. Thank you all very much. Please make a plan to vote here. Senator, while I understand that your schedule is probably managed down to the very minutes, I would strongly suggest that you consider coming back and answering a few more questions. A Reddit AMA is perceived vastly differently from, say, a press conference, rather than answering as many questions in the time allotted to you in this case. Apparently 12 questions in about 30 minutes. Consider this thread an ongoing conversation with the people. Especially consider answering questions that may not garner a popular reaction, or questions that are clearly hostile in nature. It's easy to answer softball questions like what's your favorite book? But it doesn't show much in the way of gumption. I saw that this AMA was an hour old, got excited, and then saw that Bernie had done his sign-off message 42 minutes before I clicked the link. A roughly 18 to 30 minute AMA. Were people not staying focused on Rampart? Did you just answer 13 questions and then book it? Pretty ass backwards AMA. Expecting anything else from politicians is setting the bar pretty high. You know. Damn it Bernie, I love you, but my generation needs you to inspire us to get out, vote, and make a difference. This AMA appearance was too brief and you didn't answer any substantive questions. It's flat. Thank you very much for your time, Senator. If I could ask that you have some staff members comb through some of these questions that you did not have time to answer today and had your staff answer these questions on your behalf. There are quite a few excellent questions asked. Please come back to them, as we value your thoughts on these multiple topics. Bernie, how can we stop the war in Yemen? Why do we continue to operate on friendly terms with Saudi Arabia? Why don't we try to actually engage in a healthy relationship with Iran? Do you believe there should be more citizen involvement in government or just the opposite? Also, what do you think of the current education system in the U.S.? In your opinion, what is the most pressing issue facing our generation today? What's the best thing about Vermont? I love Vermont because of its natural beauty. When you visit us, you will find that we are truly one of the most beautiful states in the country and that we have 4 special seasons. Right now, the leaves are changing, which is a beautiful time to visit Vermont. Further, we have a very down-to-earth type of politics in which candidates at the local, state and federal level remain close to the people. I think it's fair to say that in Vermont at one level or another I have personally met a good percentage of the people in our state. Lastly, I'm proud that in recent years Vermont has developed one of the most progressive election systems in the country, making it very easy for people to vote. If I had to leave Pennsylvania, I would immediately go to Vermont. I love it there and envy the people who live there. Hi Bernie. How will a single-payer healthcare system actually save Americans money? How is it that America is paying more per capita for healthcare relative to other developed nations that have implemented single-payer? I would hope that there would be widespread support in Congress, as I know there is among the American people, for the legislation that I've introduced, which would guarantee healthcare to all Americans through a Medicare for All single-payer program. The first year of the 4-year phase-in program calls for lowering the eligibility age from 65 to 55 and for covering all the children in America. I would hope we can get widespread bipartisan support for that. Further, all Americans, whether they're conservative or progressive, understand we're being ripped off by the pharmaceutical industry, which charge us by far the most per country. The American people want us to stand up to the drug industry, and I hope very much we gain bipartisan support to do that. This didn't answer the question. When I worked at a local hospital, the amount of times I heard that a patient was avoiding treating their child at said hospital because of the prices was so sad. Hope that kids get decent coverage for the parents to afford it. It's very important. It also helps paint hospitals in a better light. Imagine if you knew you had to go but your parents tried to explain that it's too expensive to treat you. What kind of a look would that be for the kid going forward throughout their life? I think the problem here is there isn't enough ELI5 explain like I'm 5 content on exactly how we would pay less money overall. Am I right in saying we would pay more monthly but less in insurance costs, premiums, and less on things not currently covered by insurance? This means that we would be paying into single payer, but the insurance companies wouldn't be able to dictate process to us or to hospitals, doctors. Hi Senator. What, if anything, can we expect the Democratic Party to do about student loan debt? Also, under Obama there were too many unemployment extensions given out. However, under Trump there are 0 extensions being given. I am unemployed and am putting an overwhelming amount of effort into getting a new job. However, my unemployment is now up and I have yet to land a new position. Now I have barely any income on my part when I'm married and a 3-year-old son to take care of. The nanny position I took while I am job searching in my field barely pays anything. Do you think it is possible that something will be done about the extensions? This is a huge issue which I am deeply immersed in. Not only do we have to make colleges and universities tuition free, but we have to provide help to the tens of millions of Americans who are struggling with outrageous levels of student debt. Right now, there are millions of Americans who have $50, or $100 of debt and struggle to pay that debt, often at high interest rates. If Trump and his Republican colleagues can provide $1 trillion in tax breaks to the top 1%, we can make public colleges and universities tuition free and substantially lower the burden of student debt on millions of Americans. I'm totally fine with repaying what I owe. But when my $150K turns into $350,000, $400,000 over the course of the repayment period, paying 1.6 to 1.7 a month, I feel like I fricked my future by choosing to become a software engineer. Half my paycheck goes to loans. Another third goes to rent. I have barely anything left for bills or saving for a house. Once I'm 40, I'll finally be saving. It's so depressing. How do you plan on making colleges and universities, many of which are privatized, tuition free? If you could replicate the USA's economics on another country's economics, which country would it be? I think there is a great deal to learn from many countries around the world, especially Scandinavian countries. These countries, Denmark, Norway, Finland, Sweden, provide healthcare to all people as a right, have excellent universal child care programs, and make higher education available to all their young people at no or little cost. Further, they have been aggressive in taking on climate change and moving towards sustainable energy. These countries understand it's important to have a government that works for all of their people, not just the people on top. And that's a lesson we must learn for our country. How do you stand on some of the other European countries who aren't quite on Scandinavia's level yet? I think Germany should be the example America looks to, as they have an achievable system in place in a very large nation with a lot of diverse people. Whereas people claim that some of Scandinavia is almost too good to be true, because of their small populations, etc. Thanks for this AMA, Senator. If Democrats take control of the Senate or the House after the midterms, what is the first piece of legislation or issue you'd like to work on? If Democrats take control the House or the Senate, we must move to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. We must immediately lower prescription drug costs in this country, and we must work aggressively towards Medicare for all. We also have to take on Trump in transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel toward energy efficiency and sustainable energy as we combat the great threat of climate change. How do you feel about Trump's drug pricing blueprint, as well as the Know the Lowest Price Act and Patient Right to Know Act? Hey Bernie, 15 per hour seems good. Are there studies on any downsides to a nationwide 15 per hours increase? That increase would go much further in the middle of Nebraska than in the middle of Connecticut, for example. Not saying it's a bad thing. I want to make sure it's positive for everyone. What can we do to prevent climate change from killing humanity? It is incomprehensible to me that we have a president who is not only a racist, sexist, homophobe, xenophobe and religious bigot, but a president who rejects science. The debate over climate change is over. The scientific community is almost 100% united in telling us that climate change is real, caused by human activity, and is already doing devastating harm to our country and the world. We must as a nation lead the world in moving aggressively towards such sustainable energy as wind, solar and geothermal, and when we do that, we will not only combat climate change but create millions of good-paying jobs and lower electric bills. We must also move toward the electrification of our transportation system and rebuild our crumbling rail system. The United States should lead the world in combating climate change, not have a president who rejects science and works with the fossil fuel industry. Senator, while I am all for the inclusion of renewable energies in tackling the challenges presented to us by climate change, I would encourage you to also look into the uses of nuclear energy to address the same issue. Most studies I have read show that nuclear power today is a less carbon-intensive and safer alternative to all other energy sources out there, and cheaper than renewables. Hey, Senator, how do we combat climate change? Well, first, I'd like to make it abundantly clear that Trump hates the gays. Please continue to use this rhetoric. Support nuclear. Stop tolerating armchair scientists. That comment was written 4 years ago, right after the release of the previous IPCC report. We're now 4 years on. The current IPCC report confirms, upgrades the dangers. And we're 2 years on from a political party that is full of climate change deniers taking over the US federal government and disassembling environmental protections. Vote out the GOP. Listen to the scientists.